Brandy, if you see a 859-825-8525 number, that is Mr. Ed Martin with the Sports Betting Regulators Association. You can promote him over. Yeah, there he is. You've got him. Thank you. Commissioners, it shows that we have 20 people participating. I'm not sure if that includes all of us. We do have a quorum, but we're still waiting on our president to get logged in, I believe.
We'll be starting on item 4, correct, Charlie?
Yes. What we'll have to do just procedurally, we'll do a roll call, and of course the welcome, and just quickly do that. And then I suppose we need to adopt the agenda again, just as a formality, and then we can jump right to 4E. We weren't quite finished with it. We had just, I think when I was so rudely interrupted, we were right at the end of that, and we were, I think, talking about some of the comments that we'd received. And I did receive another comment this morning on some things, so I'll probably start with that. And it was just a clarification comment we got from the public.
Okay.
Oh, we've got Commissioner Wildcat joined us now. Thank you. Saved me from having to text you. Brandy, did you see Troy out there at all?
I do not.
I'll text him real quickly here again. I know Commissioner Francisco had mentioned with Cheyenne Frontier Days starting today that he wasn't going to be able to attend.
Understandable.
Yeah. Governor's liaison is unable to attend, and I believe House Representative Newsom was unable to attend, and I hadn't heard from Senator Driscoll yet.
Just so you know, Sarah with the Wyoming Governor's Office is on the line.
Okay, thank you.
So Director Moore, I just got off the phone with President Broussard. He has an unexpected flood in one of his homes there and is not going to be able to join us.
Okay. Well, Vice President Covello, it is 1:36. What's your pleasure, sir?
Let's call the meeting to order. Would you provide us with a welcome, please, Charlie?
Yes, first off, let's do the roll call. Vice President Broussard is unable to attend. Or excuse me, President Broussard is unable to attend. Vice President Covello,
Present.
thank you. Commissioner Torgerson,
I see
I
him.
can
He's trying
see
to
you,
talk.
thumbs up.
I'm here.
Thank you, appreciate it. Commissioner Schiffer,
Here.
thank you, sir. Commissioner Rithaler, I do not see Commissioner Rithaler. Commissioner Kura,
Here.
thank you. Commissioner Francisco, no. Commissioner Wildcat,
Here.
thank you. Senator Driscoll. No,
I know he had a meeting this afternoon.
okay. Okay. And Legislative Liaison Newsom is tied up in a meeting. Governor's Liaison is tied up this afternoon. Vice President Covello, we do have a quorum. We also have joining us Mike Kaler from the Attorney General's office. We have Brandy Koltiska on the line as a panelist here too, in the place of Nick on the screen there handling the meeting. And then we have Mike Steinberg on here as well from our office that will present some of our materials.
Thank you, Director Moore. Let's proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America.
America.
of the Republic for
To the
Republic
republic which stands one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
liberty and justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Quickly, I'll do the welcome, if you don't mind, sir. Welcome to the July 21st, 2023 special meeting of the Wyoming Gaming Commission. As we all know, the meeting on the 19th had to be shortened due to a bomb threat in the building, and we attempted to reconvene, and then that just seemed problematic. So what we are planning on doing today, if it's the pleasure of the commission, is to pick up where we left off. We were basically at the end of item 4E, and we were moving into the committee. What I would suggest, commissioners, if we go ahead and have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda that was sent out.
Yeah, so we'd be looking for a motion in a second, please.
Vice
So moved.
President. Second.
I think we had Commissioner Wildcat, excuse me, made the motion. And Commissioner Schiffer seconded it, I believe.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, let's carry on with the committee. And we are at Safety Committee appointments.
Prior
And
to doing that, if you don't mind, Vice President Covello, I received an email this morning, and this is just to backtrack just briefly here. This came from a steward that works in Idaho and Utah. And if you don't mind, I would like to read that letter to you. I've also sent that to all of you. Thank you. I'll read it. My name is Sherry Hansen. I'm a racing steward for the state of Idaho and Utah. I also serve on the board of the American Chariot Association and the Weber Downs Summertime Track Committee. I've worked at or been involved with Wyoming Downs since the first opening, and my family continues to do so. It has been brought to our attention in various Wyoming Racing Commission meeting comments of some of the tracks in Utah and Idaho not being kept up and maintained. could be the cause of the number of the catastrophic breakdowns at Wyoming Downs. Weber Downs in Ogden, Utah is maintained and used all year round. There is never a time throughout the year that the track sits unused or unmaintained. We ran chariot races almost every weekend from December through the end of March with a number of colt teams, along with a 5-day flat track meet in April and May, including 2 large futurities. Without any catastrophic injuries, we did have 1 chariot horse that had a heart attack leaving the track. Going through my records, I have found in the past 4 years at Weber Downs during our race meets, we have had a total of 5 catastrophic breakdowns and includes 2 chariot horses. They have ran 7 race days in Pocatello Downs, with 1 horse being vanned off, to my knowledge, was not euthanized. As a member of these associations and boards, we feel that this information is vital and needs to be forwarded on to the Wyoming Racing Commission. We need to work together for the future of the sport. Wyoming racing is vital to Utah horsemen, as is the Utah horsemen to the Wyoming racing. So that was one of the public comments we received, and thank you for that. We do appreciate that.
Absolutely, obviously extremely important information with regards to this this subject that we've been dealing with.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else with regards to the safety issue?
I think we could move to the safety committee at this point. All the information that we've had is out on the website, and I think we've kind of included that discussion for the time being. So moving into the safety committee, commissioners, in your packet, I did have a suggestion for the safety committee. We started this committee several years ago, and we've been, I say I'm remiss that we haven't kept up with this a little better. But my suggestions for the committee appointments would be potentially, and again, this is up to you all, would be 2 individuals from the gaming commissioners on this committee. And then myself as the director, I would ask that we would potentially appoint one of our stewards. I would also ask that we would have on that committee Dr. Erickson, who is our veterinarian that we have. Also Brandy Koltiska. And then we would need horseman representatives. It could be 1 horseman representative that was covering all the tracks, or it could be a separate individual from each one of the tracks representing those. And then, of course, someone from 307 Horse Racing, an individual from Wyoming Horse Racing and Wyoming Downs. If that's kind of the structure that you'd like us to do, I can move forward with that. I can take appointments, whoever would like to volunteer to be a part of this committee on the commission. We can get that filled in, and then I can follow up after the meeting with the representatives from the Horsemen and from Wyoming Downs and 307 Horse Racing and Wyoming Horse Racing.
From my point of view, Director Moore, it looks like a great mixture. What do the rest of the commissioners think?
I think that sounds like a good mix.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Agreed, yes.
So who would
Sounds
like
like we have a consensus. Let's move forward with that, Charlie.
who on the commission would like to be a part of that?
This is Dan Schiffer. I would volunteer.
Okay,
I'd volunteer Roger Torgerson.
okay.
Perfect.
That is perfect. And to give everybody a little background, of course, as we know, Commissioner Schiffer has spent several years involved in the thoroughbred world and the thoroughbred industry and at a very high level. And, you know, another nice thing that I found out yesterday, Commissioner Torgerson has a tremendous amount of experience with horses, horseshoeing, not only roping, cutting, barrel racing, but also it sounds like he's had a lot of experience with eventing and dressage in different things. So he's multifaceted in that, and I think would be a perfect mix for that.
Excellent choices.
Excellent. Well, Charlie, then we'll rely on you to get the rest of the committee filled up and report back to President Broussard by the next meeting.
Okay. What we would do, just to give everybody a notice on this, I would like to put this together fairly quickly if we possibly can. Potentially, it is Friday. My original plan was to have had a meeting on Friday this week to start going through it and get the discussion going. So by midweek next week, I would like to put something together and be able to do that. So we will move forward with that.
Hopefully we'll get someone from Wyoming Downs, Wyoming Horse Racing and 307, Jack and Eugene and Eric and everyone, and make sure that they have a representative on board and get rolling. Obviously, at this point, speed is of the essence.
Yes, it absolutely is. So would you like to move on, or are we pretty much finished with that part of our meeting?
Does anyone have anything else under general discussion with regard to track safety?
Is there anyone out there that has raised their hand? I also just received a text message from 307 Horse Racing that Jack Greer would be the one from there, and I'm assuming Frank Lamb would be from Wyoming Downs, and then eventually Eugene Joyce from Wyoming Horse Racing. So we'll move forward with that quickly, commissioners.
Wonderful. Well, if there are no hands raised and we're not hearing anything from any of the rest of the commissioners, then let's go ahead and move forward to the Sports Betting Regulators Association part of our meeting.
Yes, thank you. Sports Betting Regulators Association, in your packet, you had a rather large, quite a few pages in there about the benefits of the organization. I do have Mr. Ed Martin on the line here. He's joining us via phone. He is the president of that association. Oh, there he is. He's got his hand raised and now he's ready to speak too. He would like to present to you briefly just a little bit about the association and where it's going. Thank you. You have the floor, Ed.
Thank you, Charlie. Apologize for my technical problems getting in with the phone. I appreciate the longstanding membership of the Wyoming Gaming Commission, previously the Racing Commission, and the Association of Racing Commissioners International, which has performed a function for the various regulatory commissions over the years in terms of assisting with data management, development of best regulatory practices, many of which you've incorporated in your racing rules. A number of ARCI members, their state legislators have expanded their role into gaming commissions, and of course, Wyoming is one of them. And the ARCI board created a parallel organization called the Sports Betting Regulators Association, which is designed to be a standalone, self-sufficient, parallel organization doing for the sports betting regulatory agencies similar things that what the ARCI has done for the horse racing regulators. We have had approximately 30 states participating in the process since we began operations last July. It's required a decent amount of work, and the steering committee of the Sports Betting Regulators Association created a dues structure for all the sports betting agencies so that people could be, we could help pick up the expenses associated with, for instance, the meeting we had last week in Denver. The issues are complex because what a lot of states have done is the pressure after the legislatures have approved sports betting, the pressure on the regulatory agencies was to get it up and running, and usually in a lot of states with not a whole lot of time. There are issues with regard to account security. We have had some breaches into some major sportsbook accounts, DraftKings and BetMGM and others. So the purpose of me coming before you today is to formally ask the Wyoming Gaming Commission to become a full governing member of this organization. Charlie has been helping us to this point. Right now, there are approximately 30 states that are participating, and about half of those have already paid dues for this year. And the steering committee of the group set the annual dues at $5,000. A lot of your neighbors, South Dakota Gaming Commission, Nebraska, Colorado, they're dues paying members, West Virginia, New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts. I mean, I could keep going down the list. What we're trying to do is to try to, it's kind of like when we described to a new racing commission what the ARCI is. Sports Betting Regulators Association is Alcoholics Anonymous for sports betting regulators. We all have the same problem or challenge, and we lock ourselves in a room and try to help each other through it. There are questions about what the best practices are or should be in terms of assessing what events to allow people to wager on. There are differences with regard to whether there was a breach of the NHL. Some jurisdictions have allowed their sports books to take bets on the NHL draft. The integrity monitoring done by U.S. Integrity had identified some issues with that, and they found some extremely large wagers. Each one of them won with regard to a certain draft pick, which leads people to a question about the use of insider information. There are questions with regard to whether there should be common standards for anti-doping. The trend in the industry is to allow in-play wagering and now micro betting, where you can bet on the whether the first pitch is going to be a ball or a strike in the next inning. We all watched the Super Bowl. We saw Patrick Mahomes, who was an ailing puppy in the first half of that game, hobble off the field after a lackluster performance, and he came back like Superman, leading people to conclude that something was done in the locker room. After that, there was a report on the internet, supposedly by a Boston Globe sports columnist, who turned out to be fake, by the way. But what he had reported on Twitter was that Mr. Mahomes had failed a post-game drug test, and the NFL was investigating the Super Bowl title of the Kansas City Chiefs. We checked into that directly with the NFL on behalf of some of the member commissions, and what the NFL told us is that was false. It's not a journalist. It was a guy posing as a journalist. But what was more interesting is they indicated that Mr. Mahomes was not one of the athletes chosen to be subject to a post-game drug test, which raised other questions as to how do you choose which athletes are selected for post-game drug tests. There's a lack of transparency in a lot of these programs, and there's a consumer protection issue. Are there things that are allowed that are being done to these athletes that should be a matter of public information if somebody is allowed to wager on this? Do they not need to have the complete story? So there's all sorts of thorny issues to be sorted through. The Sports Betting Regulators Association should have probably started 5 years ago when PASPA was repealed by the Supreme Court. At that time, there was only a handful of states, and they really didn't see the need for it. But now most states definitely see the need for it. So we've been we've got our sea legs up and running, but there's a lot of work to be done. And to do that work, we're going to need the various members to become full governing members, which means you'd get a dues invoice every year, and you would determine what the rate of those dues are. So, as I said to Charlie, the group can only go as far as there's fuel in the tank, and we're hoping that at some point in time, parts of the industry will help underwrite certain aspects of the work that we need to do, but we've already brought in some experts on trends in the industry to talk to people, anti-doping programs and standards that we feel that might be a good basis for the various states to think about. There are members of Congress already talking about passing federal legislation to have the federal government take over some aspects of this, specifically with regard to advertising and what's allowed and what's not allowed. There's a bill that, so there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I'd just like to, if you're very well familiar with what the ARCI has done on the horse racing side, we envision that this will be the same function as it continues to operate, would be the Sports Betting Regulators Association. And I'd like to answer any questions anybody may have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Martin? Certainly, we appreciate you being with us today. And with respect to the Sports Betting Regulators Association, Charlie, what is your role with them currently?
I'm the chairman of the committee, and that is one of the reasons why I wanted to have Ed come and visit with you on this.
So certainly our own director has been an integral part in getting this Sports Betting Regulators Association up and running. And I think we would be remiss not to be a member, but certainly I won't be the one to make a motion with that regard. So does anyone else have any other discussion or any thoughts with regards to our membership with the Sports Betting Regulators Association?
Vice President Cavello, this is Dan Schiffer. I wondered if Charlie could address the ability of the commission to pay the annual dues. Is that something permitted by statute or otherwise?
Yes, it is. No different than what we're doing currently with the Association of Racing Commissioners International.
Thank you.
And,
Anyone with any other further questions?
Vice President Cavello, Commissioner Torgerson has his hand raised.
Commissioner Torgerson, please.
Yeah, Vice President Cavello, how would that change our relation? I guess being new to this, what would that do for us being a part of that group?
It would mean that if you wanted to travel to meetings, you would be able to. We would be a part of it. We would also be a voting member of the association. I believe that's correct, Ed. Would be a voting member and help guide the organization as we go through this.
Okay.
Great question. Any others?
Vice President Cavello? This is
Yes, Commissioner Curra.
I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with this and join this fine organization. Since Charlie has already been there representing us as a state, I think it would be a good addition for our group to have available for us.
Very good. So we have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner Torgerson. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners? Any discussion from the public? Any hands raised? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion does carry. Thank you very much. And Mr. Martin, we appreciate you coming on board today and helping us with this subject. And obviously, we're proud of the fact that Charlie is representing the state of Wyoming with regards to this.
Well, you've got a great executive director in Mr. Moore. And, his approach to solving and problems is very much appreciated, and the fact that the work that he's already done on this is extremely appreciated. So
Well,
thank you.
President Martin, again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Okay, have a great meeting.
Thank
Thank
you, Ed.
you.
Charlie, thanks for what you've already done with regards to this. And
Yes.
now we're to that point of the meeting where it is the director's report.
Yes, thank you very much. Commissioners, I don't know if you can see this, but that's our annual report. We finally have that out. It is posted on the web. I believe you all have received hard copies on the annual report. It is the 2022 annual report. In the coming years, we'll have that report out a little sooner. And I do apologize for that. With different staffing issues, we were slow to get that report out, and we had a busy legislative session. The next piece I have on the director's report is the update on the FBI on our situation we've run into there. We did get an extension. Again, I'd like to repeat, we did get an extension. That extension is good till July 1st of 2024. Beyond that time, we will lose our ability to do that. This requires a legislative fix. I talked to, again, while I was in Denver last week at the Nickelgees meeting, I spoke with Representative or Liaison Newsom and Representative Davis while we're down there. We had hoped that we'd have the opportunity to speak a little more with Senator Driscoll, but I'll get with our two liaisons and here in the near future and get their suggestions on how to move this forward and get this fixed or look at even some alternatives. So at this point, everything is status quo as far as background and criminal histories. So we're good to go. The next piece, I'm going to go through this list fairly quickly because I know it's a little more difficult since we're online. The National Council of Legislators from Gaming States. It was an incredibly good meeting last week. Again, Representative Newsom, our liaison, and Representative Davis was down there. I think that when they left and walked out of 4 days of pretty intense meetings with other legislators from gaming states, I think they were amazed. I think they were pleased with the information they heard. I know they all developed some probably lifelong relationships with individuals down there as well. And I know that at least Representative Davis, I know, is already talked to a few of the people on some different ideas and with Wyoming and things. So it was incredibly positive. I had been asked to speak on 2 panels while I was down there, or I knew that going into it, and that's why I had attended. It's a very good organization. I did have a discussion, and this is part of our budgeting process. I may put into our budget. Legislative Service Office, from what I understand, is unable to pay that membership to be a full-fledged member of Nickelgees, but the majority of the states, the gaming commissions are paying those, and then the legislators are able to go. So I had made the suggestion when we were working on the budget this morning of potentially adding that into our budget. We have the revenues. We just need to get the spending authority to be able to do that. And so I'm going to go ahead and present that and put that into our biennium budget to where the gaming commission can do that. And then then the next step would be the governor would decide whether to keep that in the budget, and then it would go to joint appropriations committee, and they could either make that decision to allow us to join and allow them to join via our payment or not. So We also last week had a meeting of the Sports Betting Regulators Association while we were down there. Typically, the Sports Betting Regulators Association has had meetings in conjunction with Nickel G's. So we had a very productive meeting. It was short. We had some really good presenters. And so it was very informative, helpful. The next thing I have is in the near future, we're going to need to do some rule change pertaining to microchipping of the quarter horses. As you may remember, some of you, we had to go and do some changes with the thoroughbreds, and we've got to go ahead and do that with the quarter horses. Commencing January 1st of 24. I had in the handout 23, but it's 24. Microchipping will be how they will be identifying quarter horses. So we've got to get that rule in place. The other thing is we have coming up here on the 29th, July 29th at Wyoming Downs, we have the Breeders' Award presentations that will be going on that afternoon or evening at the racetrack. It's a very nice event. Any of you that want to travel to Evanston for that event, go to the races, and then after the races, go and be there and see the awardees, and we hand out our trophies. Another piece just to bring up to anybody that's listening here, the skill-based amusement games, we did have an RFP out there for a central monitoring system. And in fact, I think I said it earlier in the meeting the other day, we did not get any proposals on that. We're going to circle back with the different entities and see if we can get that, and we may have to repost that RFP again. About 2 weeks ago, the Thoroughbred Racing Protective Bureau, the TRPB, did their annual historic horse racing audit. They hit, I think, 7 or 8 of the locations there were 2 days, so they hit more than that. But they hit Cheyenne, Casper, and I believe Laramie and Rollins. And that, at this point, from what we're understanding, that audit went very well. So I think that's all I have at this point, at this time, on the director's report, and thank you.
Thank you, Director Moore. I guess we're ready now to move on to item number 5, skill-based amusement games. And will Mike be handling this?
Yes, thank you.
Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. 5A is a request to license Boone Games LLC as a skill-based amusement game vendor. The commission staff received on 4/19 of 23 an application from Boone Games LLC and owner Mark Grolu. The application for licensure is to become skill-based amusement game vendor. Boone Games LLC plans to supply previously approved vanilla hardware and software. All required information was submitted and appears compliant with Wyoming statutes and rules, and no disqualifying convictions were found.
So commissioners, we would need a motion and then a second and then discussion.
So we're looking for a motion for a new vendor's license for Boom Games LLC offering vanilla games.
Correct.
Where would they be located?
Their license says Sheridan.
I believe that's where their Wyoming office is.
That Wyoming office is in Sheridan. And then typically the way that works, Commissioner Torgerson, is then they'll be allowed to distribute games throughout the state of Wyoming. Is that correct?
That is
Mr.
correct.
Steinberg?
Okay.
This is Commissioner Wildcat, motion to approve Boone Games LLC as a new vendor within the state of Wyoming.
Second that.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wildcat and a second from Commissioner Kura to license new vendor's license for Boom Games LLC offering vanilla games. Is there any discussion? Are there any hands raised from the public?
Randy, do we have any?
There is not.
There's not. Thank you.
Okay, no further discussion. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The motion does carry. Thank you. Mr. Steenberg, would you proceed to item B, Gracie Technology Software Update?
Yes, on 6/22 of 23, commission staff received a request from Sunrise Distributing requesting to deploy Gracie software version 1.8.7.6. On 6/26 of 23, Special Agent Laramendi reviewed the request along with the lab report and video of gameplay and cabinet specs. I should note that with this new software, there would also be new cabinet involved to play. Laramendi noted that the themes covered in the software update are all previously approved themes. The software update mainly entails changes to hardware components with one noted exception. As previous version of the gameplay entailed a nudge or swap, this software added a skill meter component. With this added component, the skill meter is activated when the puzzle reels stop. The player must then nudge or swap while watching the skill meter stop in its correct spot. A copy of the lab report and video of gameplay was attached to the report. Based on the reference GLI report, Special Agent Laramendi concluded that Gracie version 1.8.7.6 as submitted appears compliant, and staff recommends approval of both software update and new cabinets.
Okay, so we'd be looking for a motion to approve Gracie Technology Software Update for Sunrise Distribution.
This is Commissioner Schiffer, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Schiffer and a second from Commissioner Torgerson. Any discussion amongst the commissioners? Do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do not.
Thank you, Brandy. With no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you. Do we have any further discussion with regards to skill-based amusement games? Any general update and discussion from either you, Director Moore, or Mr. Steenberg?
No, I think at this point we're good. I know Nick had a few things that he wanted to touch on, but I think he's going to do those directly with some of the vendors. And we've the licensing process, we've gotten through that really rough spot where we got the flood of them. I think we've got everything, the designated areas in all these locations were corrected as they were required to do. And so I think we're in a good spot. So I have nothing more to add.
Thank you, Director Moore. Then let's proceed on to item number 6, rules and discussion.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Cavello. Rules, just to update everybody on a few things, the emergency rules, those are in place. We will be submitting next week the companion set of rules, and this is chapter 7, the emergency rules, and then the companion set of rules that will go down the regular rule process. We'll get those submitted next week. The reason we hadn't submitted the regular rules on those yet was we were waiting to get the extension and then be able to, from the FBI, and then to be able to craft that statement of reasons along with utilizing the extension involved. Currently, we're still waiting on some more information on how to proceed with the conflict of interest. whether it's going to go down the road as a rule or a policy. If you remember back in May, we did approve that to move forward, and we're still waiting on some confirmation and some details on that. Chapter 4, which is a very simple fix that we had to do. That one is it was input today, and the 45-day public comment starts today. Starting next week, we've gone ahead and we slowed down on the historical horse racing rules because our contract is expired. I've gotten that contract renewed, and it was executed about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. And we're going to get back on track with those historic horse racing rules, along with bingo rules, and then of course, general cleanup on all of our rules. We also, in Vice President Covello, you may have some things to add here. We'd kind of been a little bit on hold with the rodeo rules, and I know Mike and I, primarily Mike, had been working on those some, but we're still hoping to get those moved forward. I don't know if you have anything more that you want to add, Commissioner Covello, to that.
No, not at this time.
Okay. So that's all I really have at this point for this meeting. So if you'd like, we can move on if we don't have any hands raised in the public or anywhere, any questions from you all.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? Are there any hands raised, Brandy?
There is not.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 7, Wyoming Downs.
Thank you. Item 7A is a request from Wyoming Downs for a new location located at 1450 North River Bend in Douglas, Wyoming. Wyoming Downs has been operating in Wyoming for numerous years. This is the first location for Wyoming Downs in Converse County. Chapter 10 of the Wyoming Parimutuel Commission rules govern simulcasting within the state. Chapter 10, Section E states, the commission shall use the following decisional criteria in approval or disapproval of an application for simulcast operator. The operator's general benefit to the state of Wyoming, the operator's general benefit to the state of Wyoming's horse racing industry, operator's integrity, individual and corporate conduct, criminal history, betting and gaming industry conduct, the operator's credibility, accuracy of a feasibility study, experience and expertise of the operator in simulcast industry. Wyoming Downs has met the criteria for their current operations. The submitted request is similar to other new location submissions. This location will employ full-time licensed staff. County approval has been granted with conditions. If approved, the commission would need a completed host facility application and fingerprints for the owner prior to opening. Wyoming Downs has advised that this site will be staffed with Wyoming Downs employees and have a self-serve tote machine. Wyoming Downs estimates that the total tax benefit of this new location would be approximately $510,000. With that, I would attempt to answer any questions from Nick's report.
Any questions with Mr. Steenberg with regards to the new OTV license request for Wyoming Downs at the Riverbend Drive there in Converse County?
Vice President Covello, this is Commissioner Kura. Mike, what were the conditions that were imposed by the county?
There were, thank you, Vice President Covello, Commissioner Kerr. There were 3 conditions. 1, the hours of operation shall not exceed 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. 2, the maximum terminals were capped at 50. And the 3rd was the resolution is good for 4 years and then a review.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
That's an interesting thing that you bring up, Commissioner Kura. That 3rd one is kind of something new. I don't know if we've seen that before, but certainly something that we may see down the road.
I think we're seeing more of that with some of the counties that are putting the condition that they have to renew or reapply within a certain time period, which I think is good.
Well, certainly gives the counties a chance to do a little bit more of a look back if they need to, rather than just giving an unconditional approval.
Correct.
Okay, with regards to the request in front of us, do we have a motion?
So moved.
I so move.
Okay, I believe it was Commissioner Torgerson made the
Yes.
motion and Commissioner Kura seconded.
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, well, that being said, is there any discussion amongst the commissioners?
Commissioner, Vice President Cavella, I do have one quick question. In regards to that stipulation, that last stipulation on there with the review in 4 years, will we need to do any further action as a commission if they choose to not renew the ability for that facility to operate? Because right now when we do grant the ability for facilities to operate, it's in continuity. So because I've never seen that before, I still do have some questions what happens then?
Good question.
Excellent question. Mr. Steenberg or Director Moore, can you address that?
I can give it a shot. My initial thought to that question, Commissioner Wildcat, is that your approval is based on them meeting all the other criteria, which includes county approval. Much like we saw temporarily in Gillette, when that county approval went away, those facilities had to close until it was ultimately decided by the courts. My gut instinct is there wouldn't be anything you as a commission would need to do, because again, they're only allowed to do it with the condition of county approval, and if that goes away, they don't meet all the criteria at that time.
Okay,
Thank you, Steenberg.
Vice President Cavella, I do have one last question. Sorry about that. It does list a 50 machine cap. I believe it's 50 machines. So is it going to be the county's responsibility to ensure that they don't hit that or exceed that cap, or is it going to be the commission's responsibility to do so?
Their current request for that location is for 50 terminals. So if approved, if this request is approved, it would be approved for 50 terminals. And they obviously wouldn't be allowed to come back and request more through you because they've reached their threshold.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to discuss with regards to this? Mr. Kaler, are you on?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, so do you concur with Mr. Steenberg and how you see this working with regards to the restriction on the 4-year look back? If the county decides that they no longer are going to allow this, then it's their responsibility to shut it down?
Yeah, that's similar to how Campbell County worked a couple of years back, and so I'd agree with Mr. Steinberg.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaler.
Thank you.
Any other discussion amongst the commissioners? Brandy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do not.
All right, let's proceed to vote. Commissioners, all those in favor of the motion to approve the new OTB location for Wyoming Downs, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Mike, looks like a software update for Wyoming Downs.
Thank you, Vice President Cavello. Item 7B is a request from Wyoming Downs for game themes. On 6/12 of 23, the Wyoming Gaming Commission received a request from Wyoming Downs seeking approval to deploy 2 new Light and Wonder game themes. Their associated math models utilizing the previously approved Ainsworth backend system. The themes are Goldfish Feeding Time Capsule and Goldfish Feeding Time Treasure. Themes operate on a commission rate between 6.5 and 13.5%. On 6/23/23, Agent Laramendi reviewed the submission, including screenshots, video of gameplay, all lab reports, and all theme and math model specification sheets. An independent laboratory has found that Light and Wonder HHR software is compliant with requirements set forth in the Wyoming Gaming Commission rules and Wyoming statutes for parimutuel wagering. The laboratory also determined that results of a historic thoroughbred race compared against a player's selection are the only determining factor in the outcome of the player's wager. The outcome of the game is entirely determined by the player's picks, evaluated against the results of the historical race. This request is similar to others approved for use in Wyoming and appears in compliance with when compared to the 18-point compliance checklist and review of the lab reports. This request appears to be in compliance with Wyoming law and Gaming Commission rules. Light and Wonder is currently licensed in good standing, and commission staff would recommend approval of this request.
Are there any questions for Mr. Steenberg with regards to this request?
Mr. Vice President, this is Commissioner Bowl.
Commissioner Bowl.
My goal was not to talk during this meeting, but I gotta ask, so the display on this game is goldfish?
Commissioner Bull, that is my understanding, yes. Special Agent Laramendi viewed it all. I have not, so I can only assume based upon the names that is correct.
And it's a historical racing machine?
Correct. The back end or the results are determined by a previously run horse race.
But what the user sees is a goldfish doing something. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner Bowl. Have you seen
Okay.
any of these machines? Because they have everything under the sun on them.
Mr. Vice President, I gotta admit, I am learning a lot. So,
As did I when I came on and started getting a hold of this, but there are a variety of themes.
one of these days, the commission ought to do a workshop at one of these establishments. I'm sure
We
it
did a
would
couple
be-
years ago. It was very interesting, very interesting. Yes, indeed. Maybe we'll
Anyway.
do that in November.
Anyway, Your Honor, I would make a motion that we approve this application for the software upgrade. Goldfish notwithstanding.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bowl and a second from Commissioner Kura. Do we have any further discussion amongst the commissioners? Brandy, do we have any hands raised amongst the public?
We do not.
Thank you very much. No further discussion. Let's proceed to vote. All those in favor of the updated software for Wyoming Downs, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The motion does carry. Thank you, Mike. That does it for item 7. Let's move on to item 8 for Wyoming Horse Racing LLC.
Thank you, Vice President Cavello. Item 8A is a request from Wyoming Horse Racing seeking approval to deploy the following game themes on the Ainsworth system. Beaver Bucks, Rumble Rumble Bison, Sand Bow Dragons, Fortune Ox, Real Hot Sevens Classic, Thunder Dragon, Sandbow Pandas, Supercharge 7, Dragon Heats, and Super Wheel 7. From 6/9 of 23 through 6/12 of 23, Special Agent Laramendi reviewed the submissions, including all lab reports, par sheets, photos, and videos of gameplay. Based on the reference reports, Agent Laramendi concluded that the 10 requested game themes and associated math models on the Ainsworth system appear to be in compliance with Wyoming statute and commission rules, and staff recommends approval.
All right. With regards to item 8A, the software updates for Wyoming horse racing, is there any questions for Mr. Steenberg with regards to this application? What about a motion to approve or otherwise?
So moved.
Yes, I would second it, Commissioner Schiffer
have-
here.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wildcat and a second from Commissioner Schiffer. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners? Commissioner Bowl, you got a lot more new themes to think about.
I sure do.
Randy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do not.
Thank you. No further discussion. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the new software, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The motion does carry. Please move on to item B, please, the new OTB for Wyoming horse racing.
Thank you, Vice President Bello. Item 8B is a request from Wyoming Horse Racing to transfer a previously approved location from 300 West F Street to a new location of 3243 Talon Drive. Both were the original F Street was in Casper. The new location is in Casper. The proposed new location is operated, or I'm sorry, the proposed location was operated as an off-track betting location previously, and the new location would be an off-track betting location in the Mesa Liquors. Commission received the feasibility study, detailed descriptions, security measures, permittees, general benefit to the state of Wyoming, permittees, general benefit to the state of Wyoming horse racing industry. Wyoming horse racing has been operating for quite a while, so their integrity, credibility statements have also been submitted. Financial stability was with the application. All required documentation was submitted and appears to be in good order. Commission staff would recommend approval of the transfer request. If approved, the property owner would need to complete a host facility license.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Steenberg with regard to the request to transfer locations for the OTB in Napatona County? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve or otherwise?
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Torgerson.
I'll second that.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Kura. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners? Any further discussion? Brandy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do not.
With no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Steenberg. Let's proceed on to item number 9, 307 horse racing.
Thank you, Vice President Cavello. I'll do the first one here, and then Mike will do the remainder of these. As most of you commissioners know, 307 horse racing experienced weather-related conflicts during their meet this year. On, excuse me, on June 10th, June 11th, the 23rd, and the 24th, they experienced heavy downpours surrounding those days and created a situation where the track was too muddy to race on, pouring down rain at a couple of those days, or the track was just unsafe at the time until the mud had, until things had dried out. In your packet, you'll see their request. The first part of your packet, you see the rules that apply to this. And the reason we're here today, if you look at section 3, Roman numeral 6, it says, in case of a permittee is granted both a live and simulcast event permit that fails or refuses to actually run 16 days of live flat track horse races or lesser number of days as approved by the commission, that permittee shall not receive a simulcast permit for the next year. But for good cause shown, a permittee may be excused from failing / refusing to run the required days of flat track racing. So 307 Horse Racing has submitted quite an extensive submission here on what happened. They have an introduction. They were able to move the purses over and still pay those out. They also ran part of their card as a non-wagering activity to get enough races in for time trials. Also in your packet, you will see a letter from their horsemen's organization, the Wyoming All Breeds Racing Association, in support of granting this exception, and also their how they felt the purses and the races were all moved over. So, and I don't know if Mr. Greer or Mr. Ridgway is on the call. I would assume they are. You know, they may want to speak to this if you have questions of them specifically, commissioners.
Commissioner, do you have any questions for Mr. Greer or Mr. Ridgway with regards to any of this? Jack, Kyle, do either of you, would you like to make a statement?
Commissioners, can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
indeed.
Vice President Covello, commissioners, this is Jack Greer with 307 Horse Racing. As Charlie mentioned, you just should have a great detail on the canceled days in your packet. Definitely here to answer any questions. But at a high level, we take safety of the horses and the people at 307 Horse Racing and Energy Downs very seriously. The weather played havoc at our race meet this year. From opening day to closing day, we got a little over 4.5 inches of rain within the 6 weeks. But do know that safety is the utmost importance. Track safety is ultimately what that means. This year, we did add about 2,500 tons of sand to the track this year. It was the most extensive amount of sand that we've added to date. Ironically enough, thankfully we did. Without that sand, I doubt we probably would have ran at all with the weather that we did have. The sand definitely saved our track. A second thing I'd like to say is we did do as many things as we possibly could to compensate with the bad weather. We did reschedule several races. In total, 15 races were rescheduled. The point there being, we did run 117 races this year at 12 race days. In comparison to last year, we ran a total of 119 races. So even with the 4 less race days, we only managed to run 2 less races than we did last year. I would say that the perk to that and the reason for would be we have we had more horses this year. We had almost double the amount of horses at the meet this year, which was great. We also, as you'll see in your packet, tried to move up a post time to earlier in the day for ultimately one of the days that was canceled. This was a conversation I did have with Charlie, the director. In the rules, it says that we can delay post times for weather related or what have you, but it does not say anything about having a post time earlier. I will say if we did have that capability, we likely could have ran that race day if we would have started earlier. It would be something I would put back to you all as the commission to consider, maybe giving the operators the ability to do that. All that being said, we did have the 4 canceled race days, but it ultimately led to a very successful meet. You'll notice our Horsemen's Group Wabra was in support of how things did shake out. Through the cancellations and the rescheduling of races, we did end up running the largest number of races in a single day in Wyoming history. We ran 20 races. That was a big day of racing in Gillette, but it was a huge success. It was a cool day to be a part of. Ultimately, then also on our last weekend, we rescheduled a couple big stakes races for the last day, then in turn leading to the largest day of purse distribution in Wyoming history of $342,500 in a single day of purse money. So happy to stand for any questions. If Kyle has something to add, he's here as well. But it was a successful meet, and we appreciate your support and here to stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Mr. Ridgway, did you want to address the commission?
I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, Kyle Ridgway with 307 Horse Racing. I just want to applaud, Jack and his team and everybody up at Energy Downs that fought that weather during that time period. Jack and I worked really hard to write that summary for you all about everything that happened, and just thinking philosophically about some of the discussion that this commission had on Wednesday about track safety issues and how to create incentives. I think Jack and the team at Energy Downs did a good job of making sure, all of the interests of the parties involved were balanced in how they approach these race days. Because the issue is if you cancel a day for safety, the horsemen don't get a run and they don't get their purses, and that's a miss of an investment for them. And so by Jack deciding to basically distribute purse money, even though races weren't run, that's a pretty big deal. And something to really think about in terms of, by putting safety first, by distributing purse money, despite the fact that the races weren't run, we're still having to come before you to ratify those actions. We believe that we did the right thing, but I think the commission can send a message by approving our request here that, there are incentives in place for us to put the safety of the horses and the folks at the track above everything else that we're required to do.
Vice President Cabello, I would add 2 more points. We did release a condition book for the 2023 season, which is our purse money projected for the meet. We had a projected total of around $920,000 for this year's meet, and we ended up distributing $951,000. So even with the 4 less race days, we exceeded our projected purse money by a little over $30,000. That's a big deal. And as Kyle did mention, we did pay out 2 of those canceled race days purse money, divided the purse money evenly amongst horses entered, even though we did not run. So that was a big deal. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Greer, Mr. Ridgway. Commissioner, do you have any questions of the folks from 307 with regards to their request for the exception to the 16-day requirement?
Well, Vice President Cavello, I'd just say that being as kind of a act of God and also in the interest of keeping tracks safe, that we need to allow this kind of thing in these situations, just in the interest of keeping everything safe.
Would I consider that a motion?
Well, you could.
We'll say that we have a motion on the floor to approve their request. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Wildcat. Is there any discussion from the commissioners?
Vice President Covelo, I have one question for Jack or Kyle regarding the extended race times for the days that they did that. Have you guys got lights there, gentlemen?
Vice President Covello, Commissioner Cura, the day that we ended up running the 20 races, we started earlier in the day, so we did not run later. We actually started a little afternoon and yeah, got done well before dark. There is lights at the facility, but not all the way around the track. We do have to conclude racing before dark.
Okay, thank you.
And just as a point for you, Commissioner Cura, they ran the first set of races as non-wagering races. They were the time trials, so they were able to schedule those ahead of time. Pursuant to our rules, they were able to do that. And just as a point of context, we have granted an exception as far as weather-related exceptions in past years.
Could we, I'm sorry, should we go ahead and try to make an amendment to our rules, Charlie, in regards to allowing this earlier starts? Or is that just a case-by-case basis that we would allow you to go ahead and give approval?
When we get back into, to answer your question, when we get back into that section of rules, I've made a note to bring that up. I do see it as somewhat problematic because the public has noticed that the races are coming, you know, and let's just, for instance, a claiming race. If an individual decides he wants to show up at the races and he finds out that the races have been moved ahead, then he's going to miss an opportunity. So there's some logistics in that. In fact, I've never really heard of that happening, pushing them earlier in the day due to weather related. But we will research that on our end for you, and we'll have that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. We've had commissioners' discussion. Brandy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do not.
Okay, then we'll dispense with any further discussion and move to the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion does carry. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on to item B, new OTB location for South Poplar in Casper.
Thank you, Vice President Covello. Item 9B is a request from 307 Horse Racing for a new OTB location at 1016 South Poplar Street in Casper. 307 Horse Racing provided all the required documentation and the request is consistent with other submissions. Additionally, 307 Horse Racing holds a permit to offer parimutuel wagering in the state of Wyoming and remains in good standing. Chapter 10 of the Wyoming Parimutuel Commission rules govern simulcasting within the state. Chapter 10, Section E states the commission shall use the following decisional criteria in approval or disapproval of an application for simulcast operator. The operator's general benefit to the state of Wyoming, the operator's general benefit to the state of Wyoming's horse racing industry, the operator's integrity, individual and corporate conduct, criminal history, betting and gaming industry conduct, the operator's credibility, accuracy of a feasibility study, experience and expertise of the operator in simulcast industry. 307 Horse Racing has met this criteria for their current operations. The submitted request is similar to other new location submissions, and staff would recommend approval.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Steenberg with regards to this request for the new OTB location on Poplar, South Poplar in Casper? How about a motion or otherwise? In favor or against?
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Torgerson. Do I hear a second?
Second from Schiffer.
Second from Commissioner Schiffer. Any discussion amongst the commissioners? Discussion? Brandy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do. Eric Nelson has his hand up.
Mr. Nelson?
Thank you, Cavallo, Commissioner. I appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to just at this moment, just go back a little bit. There was a question originally, and I don't want to be too self-serving in this, but I do want to be careful on my words because the situation at hand, and I want to give a little history here so it doesn't sound too self-serving in this area here, but going back to the Campbell County scenario where it was disapproved and they shut us down over a period. In Campbell County, the Supreme Court at this point in time has voted against Campbell County that they could close us down after the fact. So they approved us. And then, of course, we got shut down for 60 days. And then in the event of that, the Supreme Court ruled that we were in favor. The reason why I say that is because this is the Campbell County County Commission approved the situation out there. And if you turn to statute Article 2, I received this because we're in litigation. Campbell County, our losses have been approximately $3.6 million, but I am forced to do 20 depositions, negotiate with these people. And Article 2, though, I believe, because this surfaced in Article 2, that no permit shall be granted to any city, county, fair board, or any corporation or association except the express condition that it shall not by any lease, contract, understanding, arrangements, or whatever, etc. The reason why I'm stating that is because I think it's important that you guys know that the state Supreme Court has overruled that and they take that control. We, of course, at that time, we did agree to come back in 4 years. But another point on this, and the reason why I'm saying this is I don't want to be without giving you guys full update. We closed down in Gillette. We also closed down in Sheraton when they race at the facility. We are forced to close down. However, Wyoming Horse Racing, Joyce and myself has entered into an agreement to allow each other to race. Of course, we have not received that from 307. And so financially, it hurts us in these areas here. And I also have to note and make note to this that it's kind of self-serving on my side is, unfortunately, we had an event several years ago at the racetrack. Josh Taylor was attacked several years ago by Mr. Greer at Wyoming Downs. He was kicked in the head. They broke both bones in Mrs. Josh Taylor's wife. And that, to my knowledge, there's never been a formal investigation on it. And I don't think that's correct that we allow this action. So I was very concerned even on the 20 days of racing. We tried to do 20 days of racing and 10 days of every race at 10 and at 13. So some of these issues that are coming back, we have to take a look at racing and the integrity of itself. The fair meets boxed 307 in, unfortunately. Mr. Joyce got boxed in and he actually raced at our facility several years ago to fill that 16 days. If that's not a requirement, I know I have to go back to my investors and say, they asked me, why are we racing 20 days and we're putting so much energy into these races if it can be waived and not be made up. So I want you guys to take that very serious. But to the comments that I'm making here is I'm just concerned that the integrity of some of these areas is tilted more to just approve OTBs. And again, that's self-serving in my area because, we want our OTBs to do it. But I just want to bring as a note, I greatly respect your commissioners. I've got to be very careful with my words to 307 because we have to work with them. But there's a lot of things out there and requiring folks to do 16 days of racing but then you go ahead and approve OTBs when you don't meet those obligations of the state. With that being said, I appreciate it. It's a very uncomfortable situation. I'm in litigation to just recollect the money all because of the fair meets at this time. And I think that's why fair meets have to allow these operators to give more time or it's a very, very difficult situation for me to invest. I want to do 30 days of racing, of course, and everybody else can back up on those days there. I have been granted a permission at times too, but those commissions were different on stating that we've invested huge amounts of money in owning a facility, and we have to compete against the fair meets where they don't have to do the 16 days if it rains. We could have made up race dates. Mr. Joyce made those race dates up at my facility, and I just want to keep that. And I want to update you more on the Supreme Court issues and things like that, and the integrity of 307 and the attack on the Greers. Now, we have banned the Greers from our facility. I don't like that idea, but I gave my word to Mrs. Taylor that I wouldn't allow those folks on until Miss Taylor says it's okay. She's too nervous to have them in there. And I just say, I just want to update you guys on some of the things that are out there that are happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
We have Kyle Ridgway with his hand up.
Mr. Ridgway, the floor is yours. Go ahead. Kyle.
Sorry, I was trying to clear my throat, Vice President Covello. I don't necessarily have anything specific.
Okay. Did we lose you, or did you not have any?
We lost him.
Can you hear me?
Back.
Can you hear me now, Vice President Covello?
We can indeed. Go ahead, Mr. Ridgway.
I apologize. I appreciate Mr. Nelson making his record. I'm not clear if he's saying you should not approve the Poplar location, which is the motion that's on the floor. But I think our record speaks for itself. And so just as a point of order, I think you guys have already approved the reduction in race days, and we can have those conversations in the rules about what the right incentives are to make sure that racing works well in Wyoming, and competition's all well and good. We've worked hard with the other operators in this state. But I think our credibility and integrity speaks for itself with what our operations look like and how we've conducted ourselves in front of this commission. So, I do think it's important to recognize the letter that we received in support of our application for this Poplar Street location from the Board of County Commissioners of Natrona County, who spoke specifically to our integrity and professionalism in the operation that we run here in Natrona County. And I think that's got to be taken into consideration by the board as well, that the local government officials here are in favor of our project.
Thank you, Mr. Ridgway. Are there any other comments from the public? Randy, do we have any other hands up?
We do not.
Okay, with no further discussion, we will now proceed to vote on the motion at hand, which is to approve the OTB location on South Poplar in Casper. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion does carry. Mr. Steenberg, would you move us on to item 9C, software update?
Thank you, Vice President Covello. Item 9C is a software update request from 307 Horse Racing on the AGS software system on 5/2 of 23 and 6/2 of 23. The Wyoming Gaming Commission received a request from AGS seeking approval to make available 4 new AGS system game themes and their associated math models utilizing the existing approved Exacta backend system. The math models have a commission rate of between 8 and 12%. On 6/4 of 23, Agent Laramendi reviewed all submitted paperwork, including screenshots, video of gameplay, all lab reports, and all theme and math model specifications sheets. An independent laboratory has found the AGS HHR software is compliant with the requirements set forth in the Wyoming Gaming Commission rules and Wyoming statutes for parimutuel wagering. The laboratory also determined that the results of historic thoroughbred races compared against A player's selection are the only determining factor in the outcome of the player's wager. The outcome of the game is entirely determined by the player's picks evaluated against the result of a historical race. The entertaining display on the game is populated using only players' choices. This request is similar to others approved for use in Wyoming and appears in compliance when compared to the 18-point compliance checklist.
Thank you, Mr. Steenberg. We appreciate that. Are there any questions from the commissioner with regards to Mr. Steenberg and that presentation?
Vice President Cavello, Commissioner Schiffer here. Mr. Steinberg, does the your Laramendi's review indicate approval of this software?
Thank you, Vice President Cavello, Commissioner Schiffer. Sorry I didn't read it because that is not actually in this, but in his report this time, but he did indicate that everything is consistent and everything passed, so we would recommend approval. I apologize.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to approve or otherwise.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Torgerson. Do I hear a second? A second from Commissioner Wildcat. Is there any discussion from the commissioners? Brandy, do we have any hands up from the public?
We do not.
No further discussion. We'll proceed to vote on item 9C, AGS software update. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Mr. Steenberg, we'll move on to item 9D, Gaming Arts Software Update.
Thank you, Vice President Cavello. Item 9D is a request from 307 Horse Racing for requesting approval of 2 new game themes on the gaming arts software. The game themes for this are Kung Fu Empress and Fortune Flip. Based on all the GLI reports, Special Agent Laramendi concluded that the 2 requested game themes and associated math models on the Exacta system appear to be in compliance with Wyoming statute and commission rules. Staff recommends approval based on Gaming Arts completing all required vendor licensing requirements.
Are there any questions for Mr. Steenberg with regards to item 9D, Alpha Software Update? Excuse me, Gaming Arts Software Updates. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve or otherwise?
I move to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Torgerson. Do I hear a second?
Second from Commissioner Schiffer.
Second from Commissioner Schiffer. Is there any discussion amongst the commissioners? Brandy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
We do not.
We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Item 9D passes. Mr. Steenberg, we'll move on to item 9E, please.
Thank you, Vice President Cavello. Item 9E is a request from 307 Horse Racing for every software update. On 6/13 of 23, the Wyoming Gaming Commission received a request from 307 Horse Racing seeking approval to deploy 7 new game themes with their associated math models developed by Every. Every is licensed in Wyoming as a terminal manufacturer in good standing. Every themes operate on an already approved Exacta backend system Therefore, the reporting, handicapping, and overall gameplay is similar to that what 307 Horse Racing already operates. The new themes being requested are Press Your Luck Whammy Bucks, Press Your Luck Whammy Wilds, Super Dragon, Black Diamond Signature, Cash Machine Jackpots, Crystal Star Signature, Gold Standard Jackpots. On 6/13/23, Special Agent Laramendi reviewed all submitted paperwork, including screenshots, video of gameplay, all lab reports, and all theme and math model specification sheets. An independent laboratory has found that every HHR software is compliant with requirements set forth in Wyoming Gaming Commission rules and Wyoming statutes for parimutuel wagering. This request is similar to others approved for use in Wyoming and appears in compliance when compared to 18-point compliance checklist, and the commission staff would recommend approval.
Are there any questions for Mr. Steenberg with regards to the findings of staff? Hearing none, how about a motion to approve or otherwise?
This is Commissioner Ball. I'll move to approve, Your Honor.
We have a motion to approve, and I'm not your honor. How about a second?
I'll second that.
A second. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Bowl and Commissioner Kura. Are there any discussion amongst the commissioners?
Mr. Vice President, I think we should just make sure that we get like little pictures of all of the characters that are going to be on these in the future.
It'll be a cartoon page.
Any further discussion from the commissioners? Brandy, do we have any hands raised from the public?
No, no hands.
No, seeing none, no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. I believe that does it for the request from 307. Director Moore, I've not heard of any request reasons to adjourn to executive session. Do you know otherwise?
No, sir.
Well, meeting dates and discussion with regards to the future.
Yes, thank you. The September 28th meeting will be held here in Casper, Wyoming. We'll try at the there at Thompson Building again, and hopefully we have a little better outcome than our November meeting. I know that is a little bit problematic for one of our commissioners potentially. He may be in California, I think at the Breeders' Cup on November 1st and 2nd, or right through there. But we are scheduled to be in the same building for our annual fall meeting on November 1st and 2nd. There's potentially additional meetings that we have to have due to the fact that we have some timelines that we have to approve, skill-based amusement games and sports wagering operators within 60 days of skill games and 90 days with the sports wagering operators. So there could be a Zoom call or two in between those two dates. Again, our fall meetings are typically our permitting meeting. That's why we have 2 days there for that November meeting to hear permits, take some time, go through those. And then, of course, as I'd said earlier, we'll put together a safety committee and get that meeting held here in the near future. And then I'll report back to you all. That's all I have.
Yeah, obviously, we've got a lot coming up before the end of this year with lots of rules to look at, including rodeo rules and lots of other things, So stay tuned. We need to keep our nose to the grindstone here, fellas.
Yeah.
And ladies, excuse me, Commissioner Wildcat. With nothing else before the meeting, why, I would mark this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending, and you and the public as well.